This time on Divisive Issues, the gang gets into trouble. Getting into trouble. Da da
That's
da
not,
da
that's not
da
how the
da
song
da.
goes.
Getting into trouble. I don't know what the
It's
fuck the
fun
song.
getting into trouble.
Trouble, something, bubble.
Hey everyone, welcome to Divisive Issues. This is a comic book podcast where we talk about a less than stellar issues in comics, although you would not know that from our last episode. I'm Joe.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Sly.
And today we have the absolute pleasure of reviewing a personal favorite of mine.
And only yours.
Only mine. This might be a little bit different than last episode. We are going to be doing Trouble, the miniseries by Mark Millar.
And boy, is it a mini-series.
And the Dodsons. Just a little disclaimer. Things are going to get weird this episode. There's going to be a lot of raunchiness. If you're familiar with the book Trouble, we're not going to shy away from the aspects and portrayals that go on in that book.
Or the jugs.
Or those. So, just a heads up, it's going to get weird.
So, fun fact, it's written by the same writer who wrote Civil War, and I have many fewer nice things to say about this book.
Sly, how do you feel?
I feel this book should not exist.
Okay. High praise from Sly.
Sly wants it erased from the face of the earth.
So, as it's your personal favorite,
It
Joe,
is my personal favorite.
Sell us on it.
Sell us on
why
it.
should someone, in your opinion, read
In my
Trouble?
opinion, why should they read Trouble?
In your professional opinion.
I think they should read Trouble if they want a good laugh. Yeah, I don't think it's a book that should be taken seriously by any stretch of the imagination. But I love it for what it tries to accomplish and kind of how short it falls in trying to do that. If you ever read a Gossip Girl-esque like teen book with like the photo covers of like ladies and like people like making faces and stuff, it is very much in that vein, and it very much tries to capture the spirit of those books. Many of them are really enjoyable if you enjoy that kind of genre.
So
but
you've told us kind of what the tone is, but go into a little bit more detail.
Okay,
on the premise.
It's Aunt May and Uncle Ben just boning each other.
And yes, that's Spider-Man's Aunt May and Uncle Ben.
Not the Aunt May as old.
No, that's Aunt May, young Aunt May and young Uncle Ben, and then young Mary and Richard Parker.
Peter Parker's parents.
We don't want to make people think this is a book about old people having sex.
Now that I could get into.
Yeah.
That's a fanfic waiting to happen right
That's
there.
so you've been reading my Golden Girls fanfiction?
So you know what? Let's do opening thoughts on this book. I like it. I love it for the camp of it. I love it for the just over the top raunchiness and vulgarity and just how it kind of swings and misses at times. While all like I love it for the entertainment of it. It is a bad movie in comic book form.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I do think it falls on the so bad it's good category. I think it would work much better as not any characters we've ever seen before, as just a teen romance, fun, like sex book. But it adds
Teen
in
romance sex book.
Yeah, but it adds in a lot of, which we'll get into when we dissect it, a lot of weird Spider-Man references that just are. They keep reminding you that these are the old people from Spider-Man comics. And it's weird. I recommend it as a so bad it's good, but go in knowing that it's a weird ride. So what about you, Sly? Would you recommend this?
It's a very difficult call to make because I don't know if I would qualify this as so bad it's good, but I do feel it's one of those movies you have to see to really understand the full scope of life. Like, who?
What?
Are they making a movie of this?
Did I say movie?
You said movie.
Does Sony have the rights to this? Because I hope they do.
You think it's a movie because the sexual imagery is so vivid?
Yes,
in your mind.
they've created pictures in my mind. No, but it's a book that one has to read just because I cannot fathom the target audience for this book. The target audience that says,
You don't see me, but I'm raising my hand right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Joe, but the target audience that the creators of this book imagine as they're creating this, like, this is going to sell. This is going to be like hotcakes. This is a new hot ticket. We're going to have a book about young sex and it's gonna be aimed towards Spider-Man fans because it has Aunt May and Uncle Ben fucking. More importantly, uh, as an actual story, I don't think it works very well as a sex book because it feel maybe I'm not the target audience for this, but it feels like a slasher movie where there's no slasher because these characters are shallow as hell.
Wow, that is yes.
The characters are
Yes.
shallow as hell, and you're just waiting for Jason to show up and fucking kill him.
Wow, yeah, that really. That's it. That's it. The episode's done. That's what it is.
Well, folks, that's a wrap. This has been Divisive Issues.
It's a slasher movie without the serial killer. Wow. Yeah.
Sly does bring up a very interesting point about the target audience for this book. For those who don't know, the covers are just. I think
Yeah, I
mentioned
wanted
that
to mention the covers.
the covers are. I mentioned this earlier. If you've ever read a Gossip Girl-esque type book where they have like the close-ups of like trendy girls and stuff, it very much falls in that vein where the covers are just like two bikini models like blowing bubbles and
Photographs.
stuff. Yeah,
Not,
and they're not
comics,
illustrations.
Not illustrations. It almost looks like you're picking up, one of those magazines they ID you for at the gas station.
They're weird in that they almost look like young adult like book covers, but they're just so not.
I think we'll definitely throw up the pictures of the covers on the Facebook page because they are not like any comic I've seen, and I'm okay with that.
haven't seen before and haven't seen since.
Yes, truly ahead of their
A
time.
groundbreaking book.
So I know Sly wanted to talk a little bit about the Epic line.
All right, so imprints and comics. Basically, if you've probably ever read any comic ever,
Pull up a chair, children.
Yes.
Uncle Sly has a story for you.
if you've never read any comic, you've probably read an imprint because stuff like Sandman, Neil Gaiman's Sandman, and books like that, oftentimes they get published under a different name than the main company. So DC published, I think he was Vertigo, right?
Yep.
So DC published Sandman, but they didn't want it to be. They wanted it to follow different rules from the main universe, so it wasn't bogged down by sticking to continuity. It wasn't bogged down by having to follow editorial mandates. Basically, you want to make sure the creator had more control. It wasn't. It was the creator was allowed to do whatever changes they wanted, and also it freed them from the expectations of a DC book. So stuff like Vertigo.
They could play loose with continuity.
Exactly.
Stories. We talked a little bit about this in the last episode with the Max line when we talked about the Punisher.
Exactly.
That they were more mature, they didn't follow the same kind of rules, and Marvel tried that as well. And I don't think Marvel's ever had a line. Max has been pretty popular, but Vertigo I feel like is the gold standard
Yes.
for imprints.
Ironically, the original Epic came before Vertigo, created by Jim Shooter. And it was successful during the 80s. It never reached the heights of Vertigo and overall quality, but
Vertigo has books like Why the Last Man,
Why Last Man.
a lot of Sweet Tooth, books that a lot of non-mainstream comic fans probably are familiar with.
Basically, these kind of imprints they appeal more to non-comic fans because they're so atypical from what comics are expected. Like they follow more mature stories. They might not have characters and costumes running around, and
They usually like have a beginning and an end.
yeah, the creator tells one story, ends it, and so you don't have the problem of knowing all this backstory. Epic was created by Jim Shooter as a way to create creator-owned stories in Marvel. And first it was only for creator stories, like completely original stories. Later they started putting more actual characters from Marvel in dark stories in Epic, and it lasted for a while. But by the '90s, it kind of fizzled out. They only revived it for one mini series or so every now and then. But Bill Jemas, editor in chief at Marvel, during the time of trouble, Bill Jemas is a creator we'll probably be talking about a lot because his entire collection of notable works is worth reviewing on this podcast.
I'm looking forward to it.
Starting with Marvel. And Marvel makes Trouble look like a masterpiece. If I take back what I said in the beginning, if any book is important for every human being to read, it's Marvel. But last issue of Marvel isn't actually an issue of Marvel. It's a submission guideline for Epic. And Bill Jemas says, I love writing this series, Marvel. It was something completely outside the mainstream. No one liked it. Not because it was shit, but because no one could appreciate its brilliance.
Yeah.
Which is not true.
We'll find out, won't we?
Yeah.
But and he said, I want more stuff like this. I don't want books like Marvel to be thrown to the wayside by biased Marvel readers. I want to get its own audience. So I'm gonna make this new line epic, and we're gonna make more books like Marvel. And Trouble was supposed to be one of the flagship books. This was a book that's gonna launch Epic, and this had a good history with the '80s stuff. There are very many notable Epic books. So this has a prestige behind it that it tarnishes. So
Yeah.
and and it's also worth pointing out that Mark Millar is not fully to blame for this story because apparently, supposedly, Bill Jemas and Joe Quesada and Mark Millar all collaborated and said, "We got to tell the story. This is something the world needs to see."
Well, think about if the Epic line took off, it could have the prestige of like a Vertigo or like even like the Max line. People might not know the Max line from, just like picking things off the shelf, but that's where Jessica Jones came from. And we're going to see Punisher in Daredevil Season 2, and I'm sure it's going to take a lot of inspiration from the Max line.
It already has.
Yeah, and that's things that, have big, massive appeal that Epic could have had that had they had a stronger launch.
If they had a better editor.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about the basics. We're talking about who it targets and everything. Let's get into the plot. I think we'll turn this one over to Joe, our resident Gossip Girl Trouble expert.
All right, well, let's crack this baby open. All right, it starts off simple enough. You have a two groups of teens just graduated high school being like, we're going to go work at this country club hotel-esque thing in the Hamptons.
When in the American Pie series did this come out? Because I feel like it should be like right after American Pie 2 came out.
It could be, right. It's a very similar premise to American Pie 2.
So it starts off with the four characters being introduced in the most heavy-handed and explicit way.
You know everything you need to know about these characters,
Yeah.
weirdly enough.
So introduce us to these heartthrobs.
Okay, all right, let's start off with the ladies. We have, I'm just keep calling her Aunt May. We have Aunt May, who is a bubbling young lady who is now officially too old for her diary. And is like, people spend so much time writing down their lives, they don't spend enough time living them. And that's what I, Aunt May, am going to do this summer.
That's why I'm writing in this diary right now.
Yeah.
To say I won't be writing in this diary.
So she can live her Audrey Hepburn-like fantasy out in the Hamptons. We have Mary Parker.
Not Mary Parker yet. Spoilers.
Whatever.
Mary,
Okay.
whose last name is never said in the book, if I recall.
I don't think, does May have the last name?
May's last name in canon is Riley, but I don't think it's said in the book.
Okay, well, so anyway, Mary comes from they both come from two very, church-going families. Mary seems to be the more reserved of them, but she certainly has, an inner beast that's just yearning to break free.
Which isn't really hinted at all, except the one scene that it does.
Except for the one scene that it does.
For the
and
most
boy,
part,
does it do that.
For the most part, she's very much like...
She's
I think,
more mild.
I think
Her and
Sly
Ben are
really
the most
nailed it
mild,
with the
yeah.
slasher analogy.
She's a good girl.
She's the one who lives at the end.
Yeah.
Yes, she is the good girl who lives at the end.
I have to, as an aside, I have to bring this up. They make Aunt May and Mary Parker look exactly like Mary Jane Watson and Gwen Stacy, Peter Parker's girlfriend.
Yeah.
So they're making a statement with this fucking book about Peter Parker, I'm sure. He wants to fuck his mom and his aunt.
His great aunt.
If you
She's
could,
great,
if you
all right.
could see what Busty May looks like.
Yeah, they're really missing that time travel story where Peter goes to trouble.
So that's the one thing that I want to talk about now before we get too into it is the art.
Okay.
It's the Dodsons. How would you describe this art? See, I think Sly and I disagree on this. I think that they are perfect artists for this book. Even though I'm not the biggest Dodsons fan,
Yeah.
I think their bubbly, cheesecakey art fits this kind of fun, quirky book.
I would agree with you, but there's one key disagreement point for me. A book like this is not aimed at comic book fans. Dodsons are very purely comic book artists. This should be more like a Vertigo book where it uses very unconventional artists for the medium, I feel, that would maybe not alienate non-comic readers as much.
I think Sly would like to see Trouble by Steve Dillon.
Exactly.
Who's a hyper-realistic, very...
Everyone has square jaws. No, I think the art was perfect. I think the art that Sly wants would almost be too not stylized enough for the target audience that it felt like they were going for.
Here's my counterpoint. A person looks at these covers with the photographs on them, expecting Gossip Girl kind of story, and opens it and sees Terry Dotson's art. Very comic art.
I have flipped through TV show adaptations, like the True Blood adaptations and the Game of Thrones adaptations, and I think, like, based on that art that is appealing to the, more realistic audience, the Dodsons are leagues better at it.
I
I
would also
agree.
say most of those artists really suck.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at.
But like that's not a
That,
fair comparison. I mean, like in an ideal world, I don't
but
feel
I'm saying,
Dotsons will be
yeah,
the
I bring it
best.
up because I feel like if they were looking at like the pick off the shelf kind of fan, I'm comparing it to adaptations that you would expect. But my main problem with the art in this book, though, I think that the style is perfect, but I don't think they do nearly enough to differentiate the characters. They look very, very similar, but that also, to me, I feel like the characters' personalities don't go very deep either. So,
I don't know what the hell you're talking about. For the record, Ryan read this book like
5 minutes
5 minutes before we did this, and he's on like page 2. He's like, "So who's who again?"
And he was talking to us the entire time about Arrow.
Okay, well, I just finished season 2 of Arrow, which is infinitely more exciting than this. So I interrupted Joe. Who are the other two characters? So we have May, the crazy party girl getting away from her strict family, and Mary, the churchgoer who wants to stay the churchgoer.
They're both. It's weird because they're both like, "Oh, you're both gonna go to church," and May's like, "Yeah, totally." Except I stole this bottle of
Yeah,
schnapps.
May's like, I stole alcohol, and
Yeah.
Mary's like, I called ahead to make sure the pastor has seats saved for us at church, because that's how subtlety works when you write books.
All right, so our two male protagonists, we have a Ben and Richie. Richie is the favorite son of the family. He has the nice car. Um, Ben is. I feel like they try to make Ben seem awkward, but he's really not. He's just he's the normal one. He's not
Yeah.
he's not the favorite son. But he certainly
He's
doesn't.
not the forgotten child. He's
Yeah,
just
which
a
is
guy.
he's Ben. He's just he's not the flirt, which Richie is. He's not like the super confident guy.
He's the guy you feel bad when he dies by Jason's hands in the slasher movies.
Yes.
You do. He's the
He's
likable.
the nice guy
yeah.
that sacrifices himself to save our heroine.
Exactly.
Yes.
I feel like when these characters are introduced, though, it's like when a fifth grader writes a book report and they're like, this character does this thing. They do this thing.
Remember we talked about Civil War and how Mark Millar can be very on the nose. This is the most on the nose Mark
Yeah.
Millar has ever been.
Yeah, probably. Okay, so they go to the Hamptons.
Go to the Hamptons. We get the.
On the way, I do really like that May pulls out that bottle of schnapps, and there's two really disgruntled old people on the bus next to them looking at them like they are monsters.
Well, we should clarify that this is a period piece. Except no one actually talks like they are in the 50s.
Also, nobody gets periods either.
I'm sorry.
Spoilers.
It's bourbon. It's not.
Oh, is it bourbon?
It should be schnapps, but it's bourbon.
Good. All our listeners can stop their angry tweets at us about our trouble inconsistency.
They never clarify the actual date, and there's a lot of weird inconsistencies with things as they appear, because they reference Scooby-Doo, they reference Reese's Pieces, which didn't come out until the 70s. I guess you could presume this is the 50s or the 60s, but no one
I
acts
don't know.
like
Comic books are 12
They
cents.
reference
yeah.
that Superman comics are 12 cents, which I'm not super on point with my comic price points, but that's like
That's Silver Age.
That's the 60s. This is a weird thing that I feel like a lot of books do when they do flashbacks, where they try to keep it vague but also make really specific things. And I felt this way when I read the most recent retelling of the Fantastic Four's origin, season 1, where it was written in a style where everyone was talking like it was the 60s and was the Silver Age, but they had like cell phones and reference specific pop culture things. And where I compare it to something like the first Tim Burton Batman movie, which, while I'm not going to say it's the most perfect film in the world, does a good job at feeling like it's both the 80s and the 40s.
I actually disagree. I feel like uh, uh, Burns' film has a very timeless feel to it until a Prince song comes on, and you're like, okay, this is 80s.
Okay, so then let's go Batman Returns, maybe.
Better.
Is more in between. Yeah.
Wait. Prince isn't timeless.
Well, because now he's the artist formerly known as Prince.
That is true.
I don't know if he's still that. I don't know. I'm not familiar with my Prince canon.
If you're familiar with your Prince canon, please email us at.
Batman Returns does a good job at wading through like a vague time, where this makes specific time references, but from all sorts of different eras, so I don't get what they're going for. And if you're going to pick a specific time when Superman comics were 12 cents, why have the intro be several years ago instead of like 1960? And they also use a lot of like contemporary lingo, like dudes isn't contemporary, but more contemporary than I would expect from like this weird 50s world where everyone's like super uptight. I don't get what they're going for in the time period.
So Ryan doesn't get what they're going for, and as Ryan doesn't get what they're going for, they arrive at the Hampton nightclub, country club, hotel, whatever the hell it is. They arrive there. There's a nice sequence of we get to meet the clientele. May and Mara being worked hard, scrubbing toilets, doing kitchen work.
Wait, they're being what?
Scrubbing toilets,
No, what did
doing
you say
kitchen
before that?
work.
They're being work tarts?
They're being work hard.
Oh!
They're going to be worked hard later, too.
Well, that's all before the big dance. There's a nice bonding moment where some guy's complaining about his food. Ben and Richie are working the kitchen, and they spin on his lamb chop or whatever the hell he orders.
These are the most country club white people I've ever seen in a book.
They are.
These fries are invisible.
You shouldn't give her any gratuity. That'll show her.
This feels like Mark Millar watched an 80s like uptight comedy movie like Caddyshack or something, and discerned that's how rich white people act like, basically.
Yeah. Like, I can't believe that someone doesn't look directly at the camera and go, well, I never.
Okay, there are house rules, blah, blah, blah.
There's a lot of just teen dialogue
There's
about
a
how
lot
they're
of
not
generic
having
teen.
enough sex.
Not having a lot of sex. Great line from Ben where he says, tell me about it. The old box of condoms I've been carrying is just about expired. Just expired last weekend.
It's not a carton of milk. It lasts a little longer than, like, the 2 weeks he bought them ago. Shuffle the words in that sentence so that they make sense.
Meanwhile, they go to the dance. Ben winds up hitting it off. Richie decides he wants more of a challenge and decides to pursue Mary.
We need to illustrate how cartoonishly uptight this country club is. Like, they have a speech like, you can't touch other members of the opposite sex in this country club, and in this dance you're not to be within 12 inches of someone from the opposite
I believe
sex.
it's 6 inches.
6 inches.
6 inches? No problem for...
Yeah, no problem for Richie, says he.
Oh, I was going to make that joke. They make that joke?
They make a joke.
Did they make that joke? Anyway,
That was when I was talking about Arrow.
we get another wonderful cliche moment. They go skinny dipping, as all horny teens do.
Doesn't May also announce to the, like, loudly, guys, there's naked girls in here?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly
Naked girl alert, boys.
And this is the same Aunt May that calls Peter Parker, like, a pussy willow all the time, and he's such a sensitive boy.
And gives him a galoshes and umbrella every day to make sure there's a 12% chance of rain.
All right, so they arrive back. They're really hitting it off. Mary, is like, wait, hold on, slow down. Can we just talk? And Richie's like, yeah, of course we can just talk.
Because Richie is like letting little Richie take over. And that's his exact words.
It is.
Apparently not too little. I'd like to think that right off panel is Little Richie, the rock and roller.
Saying,
woo! Singing, woohoo, now it's a party! That is my Little Richie impression.
Nailed it.
All right, so while they have a nice romantic evening of talking, Ben Parker and May are hitting it off. Ben is in a bit of a predicament because his box of condoms just expired. Unfortunately, that's no issue for Aunt May, who pulls out a condom and has the line of the comic for me. Complete with condom held up in the air. Face it, Tiger. You just hit the jackpot.
Now, some backstory for this. In the 60s, Mary Jane Watson was kind of teased for a really long time as a character in the background, and everyone knows MJ from,
They know him now, but back then she was like
but
a new
back then
character.
She was a new character, and Peter had another girlfriend at the time, and she finally gets introduced, and Peter, up to this point, thought she was like, she must be some dog, why would she always want to hang out with
Especially
me?
because this is someone Aunt May was recommending Peter meet. She was like, for like 20 issues, she's like, you gotta meet Mary Jane, And Peter's like, oh my god, I really don't want to meet her. She probably looks like a dog, she probably looks ugly.
Yeah.
And then reveal Mary Jane. She's Mary Jane.
She gets to the door, he answers the door, and she's a knockout, and she says, face it, Tiger, you just hit the jackpot. Which is which makes
Iconic
me think,
Spider-Man line.
Yeah, it's an iconic Spider-Man line, and it makes me think that Aunt May was manipulating this whole thing from throughout for months to get because she had some sort of weird fetish of watching Peter bone someone who looked just like her, and that's why she commandeered this woman to show up and verbatim.
She got her best friend's niece, like
She
her best
got
friend's
her best
daughter.
friend's niece to come over and emulate what she said the first time she boned Peter's uncle. So Aunt May's just a dirty bird who gets off on watching Peter bone down with
A younger version of her.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why he wanted Peter to hook up with her. You gotta bone me, Peter.
Oh, jeez.
Oh my God, we're gonna edit that out.
No, we are not.
Except I hope we don't. All right, so apparently Ben finishes early, complete with the issue 2 splash page of Ben ? You done? With Aunt May's face, and I bring that up because that will come up there. That is brought back later on.
Yeah,
in the
and
book.
for those
The classic
who
scene.
don't catch the subtlety, she means, Ben, have you ejaculated?
Inside of me yet?
He did. They share their life aspirations. Aunt May wants to get a Scooby-Doo mystery machine.
He wants to start a family and settle down, and she wants to become Daphne.
She's got the red hair for it. I mean, she's...
And the jugs.
Alright, so fast forward, we do that. Richie's leaving.
Where's Richie going, Joe?
Richie's going nowhere. I take it back. Richie's not leaving. Mary's leaving. They had such a
Where's
lovely...
Mary going, Joe?
Mary is leaving the God, what is it? Whatever, bungalow thing that they stay in, the board for the hired stay.
Mm-hmm.
And Richie's not very happy with how the night went. And
What is his exact words?
Damn Bible thumping, clap happy guitar playing priests.
Because while Ben hit the jackpot, Richie hit the jack off.
All right, so ladies, the people talk about their nights. There's a weird scene, not a weird scene, but another teen movie-esque scene where they go about the Hamptons and pretend to be buying art and buying all this. They pretend to be the rich kids that they serve.
That actually does come back, though.
It does come back, but this really seemed like Mark Millar was struggling for a fucking plot in this issue.
That's the thing is, you say that there's a lot of teen stuff going on when that is really the only way to put it. There is a lot
Generic
of these
teen stuff.
A lot of these 5 issues are just I saw a teen movie once. As someone who grew up loving really stupid teen movies,
Yeah.
This is ripped right from the pages of right from the scenes of American Pie,
Yeah.
and
Ferris Bueller.
yeah,
Especially Ferris Bueller.
yeah, and even though those are classic movies, they have charm that doesn't come across in this book.
Yeah.
Because these characters, I don't care about
That's
them.
the problem. Those movies you like because you like the characters. You want to see them interact. This book, you're when this... I don't even know what you're waiting for. I guess you're waiting for the end.
And I do feel like prequels try to get away with this a lot, where they feel that they don't have to develop characters deeply because, we already know Aunt May and Uncle Ben and the Parkers. We don't need to go deep into their characterization because people already have an affinity for them. But they are so far detached from those characters that we know that I have no affinity for these characters at all.
I do want to say I do suspect there was a point where they were writing the story just as a teen girl book, and they realized there is no way to generate any interest in the story. Let's make him fucking Emmy and Uncle Ben, because this story has nothing else going for it without that fucking appeal. That what the fuck appeal of this is Aunt May and Uncle Ben.
I wonder that is very possible, and then they just add in those 4 Spider-Man
Exactly.
references.
I'm not saying they finished the book and wrote it. I'm just saying as
In,
they're developing
the
this idea,
yeah.
as they're developing this idea, I wouldn't be surprised if they had this outline as their teen girl book, and they said we need something more to this. I wouldn't be surprised.
I would have felt that they had it in mind as a teen girl book, but starring these characters because there's.
But without the Uncle Ben stuff, I don't think there's anything really interesting about this book.
I mean, I read it you guys have attached it a lot more because I think you guys like Spider-Man a lot more than I do. You've kind of imprinted the Spider-Man love on this a little bit more than I have, where I kind of read it as a standalone thing.
You just love the characters that much, Joe.
You know what? I like the around town hijinks scene probably a little bit more than you guys. It didn't have the heart of any of the movies, but they were nice scenes. Like the scene where they're driving around the car and the car dealership guy was like, "Oh, I know you kids can't, you guys are just kids messing
Yeah.
around, but I've been up behind a desk all day, and this is the most fun I'm going to have all
It reminds
day."
me of those times when I was in high school and I would go around with my friend Brian and we would pretend to be shopping for mattresses and take naps in Sleepies.
The wild world of Ryan Lynch as a teen.
Yeah, I would break into places to nap.
Ryan's Uncle Ben, everyone. Meanwhile, speaking of Uncle Ben definitely develops an affinity for May.
Yes.
Early on, but he's played up as he's the sweetheart who's falling for his first love.
I feel
right
that the first half of this book, while it's not great, has some endearing romantic stuff. It does play with some things of like May's the party girl and he's the sweet guy.
Yeah.
And Richie's the hound dog and Mary's the
church,
the
the
church,
sweetheart,
the
yeah.
sweetheart.
Yeah.
And I feel like at the beginning I was like, this isn't as bad as I thought. Like when I was rereading it, I was like, this is fun. It's nice. I get what they're going for. But I find the second half to be just the opposite. But I find the first half is nice.
First half is very nice, and
It's not a terrible book you're expecting as you're going into it.
Yes.
speaking of things that are nice, Richie sends up like a really sweet picnic for Mary, complete with Uncle Ben and May boning in the background.
Yes.
Like they're literally, like I'm looking at the picture, they're literally behind a rock, just going at each other.
So this is where is this where they have the conversation?
This is about the fortune telling.
Yes.
Yes, this is where the fortune telling comes into play. Now there is a very unique thing, not a very unique thing, but it's a big.
It comes out of nowhere.
It does. There's a focal point of this book
It is
where
so unnecessary.
Mary does not want to have sex because they went to a fortune teller one time, and the fortune teller told Mary if she had sex before she got married, she'd be a mother before she was 20. And Aunt May would never be called mom.
As someone who was in a relationship a few years ago and got into a fight with someone because of something a psychic told them about our relationship, I understand why Richie flips out and is like, "You're a fucking idiot."
So he doesn't buy it. He thinks he's being incredibly silly. Richie has to keep it a secret, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, why does he have to keep it a secret?
Because of the whole Aunt May will never be called mom. It's a very sensitive thing.
Because May is obviously really heartbroken about it.
Rather don't say that to Ben, because I guess he doesn't want, in case Ben buys into it.
I guess.
Because Ben's a sweetheart and wants a family and stuff.
The prophecy foretold!
In case Ben's also an idiot.
All right, so the rich kids show up that they were like showing off to in the jewelry store during teen hijinks earlier. They all yell at May because apparently she's not a rich girl. She's just
You'll
someone
never
who
be
works.
like us. You're just trash.
You'll never play polo.
Yeah,
You'll never ride around on horses and hit this ball.
It is heavy-handed how rich white people these guys are.
And also, the guy they actually have doing the insults is just this fat, overweight, ugly guy.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So that leads to the end of the issue.
And this is where the book turns to shit, in my opinion.
This is where we take like it was already over the top, and this is where we just go into full overdrive. Richie consults May, and the hound dog he is. He plants one on her. And
because
then
she's really heartbroken about being called like trash and stuff like that. Which is it for me. When I hit the scene, I was like, "This is a real scene with like heart," and like this is like she's it. Now that I think about it, it reminds me a lot of MJ, where she's like has all these personal issues, but she hides behind this like party girl exterior, and she's like really insecure about her, like how the world views her, which is interesting from the character who we've only seen as the promiscuous party girl.
So as Ryan was reading this, he was thinking, this is where the book's turning around finally.
Yeah, and then like Joe says, Richie makes his move on May, his brother's girlfriend,
and they fuck.
And there is no hesitation on May's part at all. She
dives right into it.
Yeah, they dive right in.
And I have to clarify my perspective reading this book. Because of the art, I did not gather that was Richie at first.
For real? What the hell wrong with you guys?
I am. In my defense,
you're indefensible.
Richie has brown hair. Ben has light hair.
You are right. How did I mess that up?
For the record, when I was reading it, I go, "Is Ben the one with light hair?" And Joe goes, "No, are you an idiot?" And then you thought about it and you were like, "Yes."
Yes, you are an idiot. I shouldn't have to tell you.
But I think that they do save their names a decent amount of time, which is helpful.
As you go through the book, you will get a more but I do feel Dodson's art in general, and this is not just him. Most very comic book artists do a very idealized person, and when that idealized person, when it's repeated, it makes characters look very similar.
Well, I think this is one of the reasons why costumes are so important. And in a book that has no superheroics, when you have artists that are used to drawing, like you look at any, like most, like you look at Superman, Batman, Thor, Captain America, you take the color out, they all look exactly the same.
There's an episode of the Superman cartoon where Superman puts on Batman's costume, and everyone's like, "Oh look, it's Batman," because Superman has the exact same jawline.
Yeah, and I feel like when you don't have any costumes and it's just people in regular clothes and their outfits change every scene, it's not like Scooby-Doo where they all have the same clothes. It does get harder to follow.
That's another point for why I do feel Dodson's aren't a good fit for this book, because they are used to drawing more complicated characters where you can easily distinguish them more easily.
I think you guys are still crazy. I can't believe both of you had such trouble distinguishing the characters in this
Such
book.
trouble.
Such trouble.
By this point, I was good to go on everybody. And the first issue, I wasn't really paying that much attention.
This was my final conclusion point, because after this point, I'm like, okay, after this huge reveal, I have to make sure I fucking know these characters, because now it's getting actually matter.
So it seems like at this point, it was really just us not paying enough attention. But I would like to point out that the book did not give me any reason to care yet.
I disagree. This book gave me every reason to care.
From page one, Joe's like,
I am
invested.
hooked on this story. Tell me more, Trouble.
Well-
Tell me more tales of teens.
Okay, speaking of that, hey Joe, tell us more about Trouble.
All right, remember how I brought up the scene about, like, May being like, have you ejaculated yet? Issue 3 opens up with, is that it, Richie? You done? And he's like, are you kidding, May? I'm only just getting started here, baby.
Earlier in the book, May does complain that the sex with Ben is just okay,
But he's very generous.
but he's very generous, which to me I took as like an oral thing, but I think she means he's just very nice.
I took it as he's not very selfish.
So
in
there
that,
is a
but-
parallel between May being slightly sexually unfulfilled and Richie not getting any fulfillment at all.
All right, we got the next few pages are juxtapositions of
I hate this scene.
It's
what do you call it? Of,
I hate this
May
podcast.
and Ben talking about how great Ben and Richie are, while we get like panels of them like making out and like boning each
Yeah,
other.
so it's Mary and Ben talking
they're-
about
how super happy they are.
Yeah.
May has a bridal magazine. Mary has a bridal magazine.
I can't believe you guys mix up the characters.
I'm sorry, they're both M names. Come on.
they're really similar.
Anyway, Mary has the bridal magazine. I want to point out it's probably been like a month.
She does point out that they were sold out of all the other magazines.
Sure they
And
were.
she needed something
Sure
at the
they
salon.
were. Sure they were, Mary.
But it's really like Ben and Mary are like the definitive like their significant other leaves and they lean against the door and fall on the
Swoon.
ground and
They
they swoon. And they're like they're I think they like talk about how lucky they are and how great it is that the four of them are so happy together.
Yes.
And it's cut panel by panel with May and Richie just fucking each other.
Yes.
And it's normally like this would be like more emotionally driven, but I have no reason to really like the two adulterers at this point.
If the story took itself seriously, it would be a very powerful scene.
Yes.
But it doesn't, so it's just pretty comical.
So instead, I'm just like, May and Richie are assholes. So
Yep.
there goes half of the characters in this book. I don't like them very much.
I will give this issue some credit. This is the first point where I can kind of see the market they're going for, because the books like Teen Girls they like love triangles, they like cattiness, they like conniving.
Not
stuff
all,
like that.
but
Not all
like,
of them, but that's a
there is a
Well,
market for
when
it.
you look at Twilight, for example.
Yeah, there's certainly a market
Yeah.
for this kind of
But
story.
here's the thing: is I would agree with that, but the scene right after that you were just about to get to, of Richie and May talking about it, there is no love triangle. May's just like, I don't even like you very much, but whatever.
Yeah.
Like there's
They
no
both call
struggle.
it.
There's no
You're like
conflict.
they're both assholes, and then the next scene they both call each other assholes.
But,
Yeah.
but to be fair, there's always in some girl shows they have conniving, bitchy characters who like to screw a guy just because another girl wants him. You know what I mean?
No, but I don't think they're conniving though. That's the weird part. They're just assholes.
They're just assholes, and that's the thing is I feel like you can have a love triangle that has a lot more of an internal conflict. May and Richie just don't care. And it's really exploitative to me because it just feels like this whole issue is let's laugh at the nice people. It feels like there's no struggle, there's no guilt. It's just like fuck these nice guys, and that like I don't like that. I just to me it feels like
Mean spirited.
that's the word I've been
Yeah.
looking for as I stumble through this. It feels very mean spirited, and as a romantic, it just breaks my heart.
Breaks his little heart.
See, Ryan could have been the target audience for this book.
Yeah,
People
could
falling
have
in
been.
love.
I'm a sap.
Ryan is a sap.
I'm a big romantic sap. Also, jugs. And I would like to just point out that we're making a lot of jokes about like how like jugs, and normally we bash cheesecake art because it's ridiculous, but this book leans into it so hard that look at the covers. The book is, hey guys, jugs.
And as much as I criticize Dotson's art, he draws a pretty hot May and Mary.
Yeah, no, they're going for a sex appeal book, and it comes across as like this is a sexy book. That's what they're going for. Like I'm only mocking it because it's so obvious.
It's so over the top. All right, Mary tells May that she's cheating on Ben.
But doesn't mention that it's with Richie.
Does not mention that it's with Richie. Ben's too serious for his own good anyways. Besides, it's not like he's ever going to find out. Be a good girl and cover for me.
And she even says, like, it's not like I'm having an affair. I had sex with him 3 times yesterday.
I'm sorry, it was twice last night and once this morning,
Oh,
Ryan.
sorry. I don't know how May has time for all this sex. If she's regularly having sex with Ben and Richie,
Yeah.
like...
Because the next scene, speaking of the next scene right after, is her and Ben fucking
Yeah.
in the sand trap.
Yeah, and I
And
get
it-
this kind of takes place in a pre-AIDS world, but come on.
But to clarify, even the characters admit this plot's fucking boring. And May later says, I had to cheat with Richie because it's so fucking boring here. I had to make it interesting. They're saying the plot is boring. We have to make it interesting. The characters are saying their own plot is boring.
Yeah.
All right, so this sequence of the sand trap, I think, has the worst. For me, it is the worst panel in the entire comic of Uncle Ben finishing,
Which one is that?
complete with "Oh God."
Oh.
It's him. It is.
I would be
like-
fine with it if it wasn't for the bead of sweat on his brow.
It's gross. It is. You know exactly what he's doing.
Unlike
It is-
the tasteful previous cum shots.
I will say that it is nice to. It is refreshing to see a realistic O-face, which is just gross.
I feel like we'll be seeing another one of those in a book we plan on reviewing down the line.
Which one?
I'm not going to ruin it for you.
Greg Land book.
No, not a Greg Land book. It is a Spider-Man book. Hint, hint.
Oh, is it a Gwen Stacy book? Okay,
It's happening.
sneak peek. That's a little teaser for you guys.
Later on, we'll talk about the Green Goblin having no face. Stay tuned for that.
Okay, so they do that. Whatchamacallit. They talk more about that stupid fortune teller thing. May scoffs at the fact that she'll never be a mom because she said that her family. She comes from a line of breeders, and all you have to do is look at a woman in our family to fertilize their eggs.
And Ben makes such a sweet joke. He goes, "Would sunglasses help?" And I'm like, you're too
What a
good for
sweetie.
this world." Which is what the burglar thought.
He is likable. He feels weird about May. Seems to be, a little distant. Mary says, it's probably because some guys made fun of her. Blah 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 blah.
I actually like this scene. This
Yeah.
is my favorite scene.
White Knight. Yeah, this was a nice twist. White Knight, Uncle Ben, then goes to fight off the Jerky Country Club hotel guys that are there to play polo.
Because Mark Millar does a real good bait and switch here.
Here's a
my
few
expectations.
like bait and switches that I actually really enjoyed.
Because Richie says, "Oh, the cops back home said like he has to stay out of fights," and I was like,
It's gonna be a bloodbath, he says.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a bloodbath, and I'm like, are they gonna make Ben like a brawler? Because that goes against everything he is. And then we see what happens with the fight.
Ben gets his ass whooped, and he's not allowed. He's told he can't fight from police anymore because he's freaking. And they do foreshadow this because they say Ben's in and out of the hospital
Yeah.
at times.
Yeah.
And he's in and out of the hospital because he is terrible at fighting.
And that's actually a
And
plot
he
point
just-
that he's a sickly character.
And he gets.
And he
gets
always, but he
wrecked.
always stands up for the weak guy, which is why, Uncle Ben, Peter Parker, all that stuff.
Yes.
But I actually, this really does
So you
drive the
see,
point
the
home.
story is actually really true to the characters. I don't know why fans hated it.
Well, we said from the beginning, Ben is great in this
Yeah.
book, but it does really ring true that these guys are the most like white collar bullies because they literally give Ben a swirly.
Okay, all right. So there's a close call. Mary and Ben almost find out about them. They nearly avoid it. Richie begins to feel
But
bad.
this is really mean spirited because Ben walks in on them coming
Yeah.
from the hospital. He's in a neck brace.
Yes.
And he thinks that Richie's just with some other girl. And then
Yeah.
he's cheating on Mary with some other girl. And he covers for him
Yes.
and gets Mary to walk away. And Mary's suspicious, but he's like, oh, like, don't worry, bro, I got you.
Yeah.
And, like, Richie's just like, oh, thanks. And it's with Ben's girlfriend. And I'm
Yes.
like, you guys are the worst. How am I supposed to... You're half my protagonists.
Yeah.
Also, at this point, I would also like to point out that what I thought was the initial conflict, which when they first get there, they have a boss who, like, spies on them doing... like they're playing strip poker and May gets super naked and he's like trying to stop them from skinny dipping, and I think at this point he completely disappears.
He does.
He is his last scene right here until the very
It
end.
seems like he's in a conflict. He's gonna be the driving conflict, and
Did
he
you-
just vanishes.
Really, you took that?
At the beginning,
I agree.
Okay,
Yeah,
I didn't think
because
that.
he's watching them at all the
The
hijinks
no
they
touching
do.
rule goes away after issue 1.
Yeah,
They're having sex on parks and stuff. Like,
they mention
On the
like there's
15th
no
hole
rule,
sand trap.
but at the beginning they make it seem like it's going to be heavily chaperoned, and that's why I took it as like they were going to be sneaking sex, and then May has sex like 5 times a day. Obviously, they're not doing a good job.
I'm sorry, he has a hotel to run, Ryan.
Ryan said he hates 2 of the main 4 protagonists. Not only are they the main protagonists, they're only like the only main characters in the story.
Maybe they're the antagonists.
They have to be because there's only 4 characters in the story that actually matter.
The Aunt May antagonists.
Mary tells Richie that May's cheating on Ben. Shock, shock. They
And
play
Richie
it off.
takes it like, I
Gasp.
can't believe it.
Like gasp,
What a
indeed.
dick.
May spirals out of control though. It's implied, I think, that she's doing it with guys who aren't Ben or Richie at this point.
No, later on they mention that they were like,
It's one of the two.
I think it was just the two of them.
But
She was showing off the
But
goods.
she shows up. This is when she plays strip poker,
This is
right?
when she plays
She was
strip
showing off the
poker.
goods a bit.
Yeah, and
Show
I
off
mean,
the good
there's a scene where she's playing strip poker and she takes her top off, and then she takes her bra off while a gaggle of men cheer May, May, May.
May.
This is why when we say Jugs LOL, this book is Jugs LOL.
It is. And then we get to our issue 3 cliffhanger. This is what, in case you didn't pick up on the foreshadowing. May reveals that she's preggo.
It seems that the prophecy was a lie, or was it?
Or was it? Next issue open, she's having morning sickness.
I do want to point out, now it gets into like a teen mom kind of drama thing, and I wonder who would have gone to the first 3 issues of random kids having sex, picked up the book for that, and then want to jump into teen mom drama.
Yeah, this is where the book kind of, as much as I think I enjoy this more, this is where the book kind of gets weird for me.
Issue 3 is when I started getting mad at it, and issue 4 is when I started getting mad at me for still reading it.
No, there's a tone and change. It kind of stops being a
There's a
fun,
tone and change.
a change of tone. There's a change of tone in that it stops being like a fun hijinks book,
Yeah.
and it becomes like this, afternoon special kind
And
of
this
thing.
is when I get mad, because I'm like, you guys haven't earned this. You haven't earned me giving a shit.
I actually wonder if this was planned. If there's any plans for expansions of the story, and what they could have been.
What could they have been? I don't know. It's so perfect on its own, I mean, what story could have followed?
I don't know. For those who don't know,
Joe's a troll.
for those who don't know, Richard Parker and Mary Parker become CIA agents after this. I would love
Well,
to
no,
see.
they were CIA agents before this story. I don't want you to imply that like the Trouble 2 were
That's what I'm
trouble
saying.
with
Trouble
like,
2.
Syrian spies.
That would have been amazing. Trouble 2, Syrian spies.
God.
Trouble 2, international trouble.
All right, so there's a great breakfast scene where they're eating and they're talking about May's options. The waitress asks May how she wants her eggs, and she says unfertilized.
How you like your eggs? Fried or fertilized? How you like your eggs? Fried or fertilized? How you like your eggs? Fried or fertilized?
How would you like your eggs? Unfertilized. The waitress is like, what? And she's like, never mind, it's too late for that anyways. It's cutesy jokes.
Cutesy jokes about this unwanted pregnancy.
Whatchamacallit, May calls her out for being a bit of a tramp. She denies that. Mary still doesn't know who the mystery man is. The prophecy comes up. They're like, yeah, what a load of bullcrap that was. That prophecy about me not being a mom ever.
I love how it's called a prophecy too. Like make it as dramatic as
What do we
possible.
call it? Do we call it the prophecy? Yeah.
Are we calling
or
it?
have we been calling it the prophecy?
And I also feel like this, like, is it a prophecy, is it not, is so hurt by the fact that we know that, like, Aunt May is going to adopt Peter and all that stuff. Like,
It's just like a prophecy in the Star Wars prequels. George Lucas ripped this off, actually. You're the chosen one, Aunt May.
That shows.
from my perspective, the fetus is evil.
Okay, so just to bring you up to speed, they're like, yeah, what a bunch of baloney that prophecy was. May's like, prophecy being baloney, eh? And then goes to Richie and is like, you're gonna do me right now. She like shoves him against the wall and is like, are you gonna like keep talking? You're gonna do me right now.
No, she says, like, are you going to get these jockey shorts off of me? Or
Yeah,
something
Richie,
really
will you shut the
weird.
hell up and get these damn jockey shorts of yours off?
What a weird thing, man.
That panel is then followed by a rocket ship, flowers blooming, eggs being beat, waves crashing against a rock, fireworks.
Okay, so I need to break these down one by one because I don't get all of them.
Not only is this mean this book is influenced by 80s romantic comedies, it's based off 80s Leslie Nielsen movies.
Which are way better. So, okay, the rocket ship is an erection. The flowers are she's being deflowered, right?
Okay.
The beating of the eggs?
Fertilizing eggs.
But
You guys looked at these metaphors way too literally. These are,
This is very deep symbolic imagery, Joe. We have to.
no, they're not. They're just like really physical exploding. Like this is a sexual eruption of like things happening.
oh, I just assumed that she like deflowered, right? And then like
I
beating
mean,
eggs
you're not wrong. I
because
mean,
he finally doesn't have to beat off. He's now beating off into the eggs, right? Guys?
Listen, this is a great work of art, and the panels of it are open to
I
interpretation.
see the waves. I guess he's just like he's really built up.
Yeah.
but he's not. He's been fucking May 3 times a day. That's the tagline for issue 3. Fucking May 3 times a day.
Okay. We also get a panel of Mary. With more sex beats, more sweaty sex beats coming out
Oh,
of her
those
face.
beads of sweat
Yeah,
make
which is
for some
man.
reason of all the imagery in this book that grosses me out so much.
Because this is a book symbolizing this character just orgasm.
No, but like I'm fine with that, but it's the sweat that makes it gross.
Yeah.
It's all icky and stuff, right? Ryan?
Yeah.
And Richie actually wants to stop. He begged
begs
Mary,
her.
Mary, please, we've been at it for hours, and Shelby's got me working at 6 a.m. in the morning, and Mary apparently just keeps going.
And he screams out, "Mary!" So the moral of the story is: be careful what you wish for.
Oh, I thought it was that Peter Parker's mom's a rapist.
All right, okay. So continuing on,
I mean, this guy's got. I have to give props for Peter's dad. He's got. We always see those images of Peter refusing to give up, and no matter how much he gets knocked down, he always keeps fighting. He gets that from his dad. This guy has sex like 5 times a day, and he goes for hours. I gotta give props to that guy.
He must have. Mark Millar must have read that issue where Peter's lifting the giant steel pillar before. Writing
Yeah, and in this
Issue
case, instead of a
33,
giant
yes.
steel pillar, it's like I guess
His
Mary's
boner.
ass. I don't know.
Yeah, you have to keep pulling up and down repeatedly, but the same idea.
okay. All right, so May kind of has a decision. She clearly thinks either Richie or Ben is
I still
the
gotta
father.
come down from all this sexy imagery. Whew.
This is like their breakup. This is where they're officially calling it off. Richie openly admits he's shallow. He's like, those people who are shallow, and like, there's
those people with the character traits that I have those.
No, he's like, I don't have those. He's like, I am just as shallow as I look. And now that me and Mary are doing each other, I don't need you anymore. And May looks at it as like, oh, this is perfect. Ben is clearly the more fatherly type person.
So
anyways.
I'll just tell him it's his.
Yeah, that's how the way she looks at it. Like she's smiling and she's really happy because now she can have her fairy tale ending.
Actually,
wasn't sure.
you're misreading that scene joke. When rereading it, I noticed the subtle nuances of Mark Millar's writing. In the scene before, Mary talks to Mary Jane while she's wearing the glasses. Mary Jane, Aunt May while she's wearing the glasses. She says, "Are you crying right now?" While Aunt May smiling, and Aunt May says, "Yeah, I'm getting very good at smiling while crying." And that scene under the glass, you can see she's crying while smiling. She is smiling, but she wanted Richie to accept her.
Do you think that?
Ah.
Yeah,
I didn't take that.
Then either that scene is pointless or that scene is brilliant.
You decide. I would tell our listeners to email us what they think, but that would make them have to read it, and I don't want to do that.
No, you should read it, listeners. Don't listen to Ryan. Listen to me.
Yeah, I wish you guys could see the intense stare Joe is giving his computer as he says, "Listen to me."
Listen to me, viewers. You want to read this book.
We need to get video for this podcast. Just for this one scene.
No, then we'd have to wear pants.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't read Trouble wearing pants. What's the point? So, okay, either way, May decides that she's just going to tell
She's
Ben.
going with Ben.
How did this happen if May has all those condoms?
Do you know how many times she's had sex?
A lot.
A lot.
Well, they talk about how the prophecy
The prophecy.
and how it has been foretold that Aunt May will never have bear children. Maybe Aunt May was like, I shall take this prophecy as word and let the prophet speak to me.
That's why when we talk about sex ed in America, there's abstinence, prophecies, and then birth control.
All right, so yeah, actually, I'm looking at this scene. This is one of the more weirdly drawn scenes of a Ben and May clearly just like did it again for like however a month.
Is
God,
this the one
I really wish I counted how many times like each person has sex.
They
in this
listed at
book.
least Richie and Aunt May.
Yeah, but no spoilers. We'll get to that. It's also, I feel like the timing is vague. That, like, I don't know if it's been a week, 2 weeks, a month.
It's a summer, so I assume it's been within like at least a week. I feel like
That's not a lot of time.
It's not a lot of time
For how many times May has had sex. I'm not saying that she's not allowed to have sex with whoever she wants.
Are you judging her, Ryan?
No, I'm not judging her. I'm saying she should be careful of chafing.
All right, so they're like, I have something to tell you. I guess they settle May goes first, and she's like, I'm pregnant. And then Ben follows up with, I'm sterile. So, long story short, Ben's sterile, and it plays back into the whole he's been in and out of the hospital and beat up because he's been beat up so many times.
Is that how it works?
Yeah. No, so he got kicked in the nuts real hard one time.
So this really is based off of Leslie Nielsen movies.
I don't know how I missed that. That he got the sperm beat out of him.
Ben figures out, or rather, I think May tells. Let's take a look. Yeah, May filled. Yeah, May got filled in, or May filled in Ben on what's going on.
Oh yeah, repeatedly, and then that's why we got into this mess anyway.
Oh god. All right. May filled Ben in. They have Richie and Ben have a angry scene. Richie cries and he's super sorry. There's an interesting dynamic where Ben is like, you had to pick the one girl who picked me instead of you.
Yeah.
And it does play into Ben's insecurities, which we don't see nearly enough of for this scene to have any real impact.
That's the thing, is there's so many scenes that in a better book would be great. This scene would be awesome as a flashback of some kind, in an emotionally driven story about Uncle Ben. But in this context, it's like what I said before. I feel like they haven't earned it.
Also, another really weird, emotional reveal that should have weight, the fact that May's dad beats her mom occurred in the diner scene.
I don't even remember that at all.
I don't remember that either.
That is, it occurs in the diner scene. I didn't know when it gets revealed, but that was because it's not, I don't believe it's mentioned any time before issue 4. And then she's like, oh, my parents found out, my dad's going to get so mad, or even worse, take it out on my mom again.
I don't remember that at all.
But it is because it's so random, it is there.
Wow,
and
that has nothing to do with anything.
I guess it's another Mary Jane callback.
I never really thought about the MJ Gwen Stacy parallels until you pointed it out.
Yeah.
What a weird thing.
It is really weird.
And isn't it? It's the title surprisingly dark because the trouble Mary Jane is in is getting beaten the shit up by her dad.
Yeah.
So we're joking. Hey, we're in trouble, and the comic is like, oh, trouble, teen hot book, and the trouble is I'm pregnant. My dad's gonna kill me.
So how far into this are we now?
We're at the abortion clinic.
Okay.
So if you may notice, this book has very harsh tonal issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is where it really gets weird because like I said, at the very least it was a hijinks entertaining book at least.
Yeah.
And then the tone just is
it's wacky and silly, and then it's super not. Now, so she's in the abortion clinic.
But it still tries to be wacky and silly.
Yeah, okay, if you were gonna write a scene of a woman debating whether or not she should get an abortion, which is a tragic and horrible decision that anyone has to make. Which also, for the record, does imply this is a post Roe v. Wade time period, which means it's in the 70s at the minimum, which is weird. But if you wanted to really maturely and intelligently showcase the internal struggle that a woman goes through to make this horrible decision, how would you do it? Would you have her have a little devil and angel on her shoulder, like in the Looney Tunes?
Because that's what Mark Millar does in his book.
And wow, is this debate between the angel and devil May the most over-the-top, heavy-handed part of the whole book, in my opinion. Where it's like, your baby has legs now, it has facial features, and the other one's like, no, kill the little thing! And, like, it's really weird. It's really
I believe
weird.
you mentioned the yuck, yuck, yuck line.
No, what is it?
It is a. I don't want to read it. Can you read it?
Yeah.
I don't want to read it.
So this is what introduces the concept. It's the night before she goes to the abortion clinic. She has all these brochures. She's laying up in bed, and it says, "Atta girl, May, I'm proud of you, honey. You're going to have a great day at this abortion clinic. Trust me, liquidating that little creep's going to be like passing a bad Mexican meal. Yuck, yuck, yuck." And then the angel
God.
pops up and says, "Don't listen to her, May. Is this really what you've been saving up your wages for? The calculated murder of an innocent child?" And it goes consistent like that for the next 2 pages.
Those two lines feel like the two tones of this book trying to fight for control.
Yeah,
Oh my-
it really does. So yeah, so then she looks at the camera and she smiles and she goes, "Well, maybe there's a third option."
Which is her running away.
Brilliant, brilliant.
She does. She leaves Mary a letter about, remember how we came here because we wanted to have like our little dream paradise, blah blah blah. It turns out that didn't happen. I screwed up, but I'm going to take responsibility by running away, taking your money, and trying to
Yeah,
raise
she
this
robs
baby.
all her money, and also there's something strangely absent from this letter, and that's telling her that Richie is the father, which I feel like should be there.
She gets picked up on the. She literally gets picked up on the side of the road by some guy in a really bad-looking station wagon.
He is the creepy guy that picks up young women on the side of the road in the most cliched way since we saw the White Country Club guy.
He looks. He has like that that Burt Reynolds-esque look.
Yes,
but
George
because
Ferguson.
but because he's not Burt Reynolds, it's really weird.
Yes.
So anyway, being pregnant on the road and alone, May decides, hey, you know what? Maybe I'm not too old for this diary thing, and it opens up the diary monologue where she literally sums up like the last 4 issues of the series. Which, if
For people jumping in right now, the perfect time to jump in. Issue 5 of Trouble.
Issue 5 of a 5-part miniseries.
she's cleaning the guy's underwear, like
She's also having sex with this guy a lot,
yes, she is. She's continuing to do that.
which is like really weird.
She tries calling her parents, but can't do it.
She can't talk to them.
She's at the end of her rope essentially.
And her dad is actually really like, "Please, we just want to know you're safe."
We just want to know. I just need to know your mom, and I just need to know you're okay.
Which is really weird, given.
Yeah, she cold calls him. She does like the classic calls and then like doesn't say anything at the Bell
it's a throwback
Atlantic.
to when Kif would call Amy on Futurama. I feel like it's weird that they threw in the line about her dad being abusive, and then we see him care a lot.
Yeah,
And the only 2 times we see him
are him caring a lot.
are him caring a lot. There's a lot of little things that just get dropped in this book.
So May decides to make one more phone call. She calls up Mary, who looks like she's in school.
This
No,
is
she's
implied
not. She's
to
not
be
in
like a
school.
long time later, like a couple months later, right?
It is. She's at least 3 months pregnant, I think,
Yeah.
at this time, through her diary entry, which we had the pleasure of reading. So she calls her up, and man, is Mary not happy to see May. She is super not happy.
Quote her line, Joe.
The new guy slapping May around, and Mary is like, "Good, you deserve it. You deserve every kick and punch. In fact, I hope he hits you so hard sometime you end up in the hospital and you lose your stupid baby."
Yeah, that's
It is so weird.
Peter Parker's mom.
I do want to clarify, this is when the book really starts to feel like a Mark Millar book. Just a reference, he's the guy who wrote Kick-Ass.
And the book doesn't end nearly as well as the movie.
All right, okay, so like they talk and stuff, and Mary says to May, "I came all this way to see what a mess you've made of your life because I thought it might make her feel better." And she's like, "It did." Mary and Richie broke up. He still writes her letters and stuff. She hasn't wrote her back. And May just breaks down. May's like, "Okay, so I slept with Richie a couple of times." Mary states, "quote unquote, 47 times."
How does Mary know that?
That is a good question. I guess I don't know. Maybe Richie wrote her in one of her letters.
Does Richie keep like a tally on his bedboard?
Dear Mary, I'm really sorry that May and I had sex 47 times. I feel bad.
I feel like it was probably written like those letters that first graders have to write for their
Yes.
mom when they curse, and it's like, "I'm sorry, I'm so."
I imagine handwriting's the same.
Yeah.
It's done in crayon.
Started crayon. I'm sorry I did the bad grown-up thing with her so many times.
All right, okay.
And then Mary calls her a fat cow.
She calls her a fat cow. In May, it's like, I'm terrified of the guy I'm living with, that he's going to kill me when he finds
That's
out.
the thing is, I don't feel bad for May at all.
And-
She's given me no reason to like her this whole book.
And May says if she wasn't having the baby, she'd kill herself. And that's kind of the breaking point for Mary, is seeing how, like, the low point that her friend is in. All right, so we get back to Richie. Richie's now almost like the fallen one in his dad eyes.
The fallen one in the prophecy.
The fallen one, the prophecy. He's working a new car after giving his hot ride to Ben, who went off to college. So he's working on this new car, and who shows up with the baby at his garage doorstep while it's snowing, other than Mary holding the newly born baby. They never come out and say it, but it's implied that it is very much May's baby that Mary takes and does it. The switcheroo with, kind of, that's a twist I really liked, actually.
I
Don't get it.
hate it.
I hate
You hate it?
Yeah,
I hate
here's
it.
why.
Why?
Now, one thing I want to say is I don't want to harp too much on the like implications this has for the characters, because we talked a lot about
What
that
characters?
before, like about May and Ben and everybody, and like
Just as a side, when they were writing the story, the Mark Millar and the editors, if this went over well, they want this to be canon.
yeah, but we talked about headcanon a little bit last episode, and like this is such an out there story, and especially because it wasn't really popularly received, it's so easy to look at this as just like it's just an alternate like interesting take on them as kids.
Yeah.
So I don't want to harp too much on what that means, but for me, as such a big fan of Spider-Man, having all that narration in issue 6 talk about how much
There's no issue 6.
I mean issue 5, sorry. I keep thinking it's 6 issues.
God, I wish it was 6 issues.
In issue 5, May talks a lot about how much she owes Mary and how like she feels indebted to her and she'll never be able to pay her back. And for me, that kind of hurts Aunt May's characterization a lot if this was to have been like definitive Aunt May backstory, because the thing that I like about Peter and Aunt May and Uncle Ben is that they're not his parents and they are just so kind. They're the kind old couple that adopt him when he has nobody else. And having him be Aunt May's son, first off, and second, having Aunt May be so indebted to them and not just a kind old soul, kind of makes that relationship more like she's repaying them and not just she is the nicest lady.
Yeah.
And I feel like that kind of like invalidates their relationship a little bit.
I would agree with you if the story was any at all in continuity.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like, if it was in continuity, I totally agree with you. But just as a story twist.
Oh, as an Elseworld, I think it's
Yeah.
an Elseworld, for those people that don't know, is just like an alternate reality take. I think having Aunt May be the mom is a really cool twist. I have no problem with that. But at the time, like Sly said, Mark Millar and Marvel, if it was popular, were going to fold it into continuity.
That's the rumor, at least. That if,
Yeah.
I do wanna. I personally hate it because I hate. It's almost a cliche that whenever you have like a surrogate father figure and a kid, a lot of times they're revealed to be
his actual father.
the actual parents. I hate that. I really hate that cliche.
But I don't think the twist is inherently bad, but given Aunt May's history with Peter in the main universe, yeah, I don't think it really adds anything at all.
No,
Yeah.
like it doesn't. But like
Yeah.
just as a twist for this story, though, it was an
Yeah.
interesting twist
Yeah.
for this story, not touching upon.
And then
Spider-Man
it
continuity.
makes the prophecy come true.
Well, the problem we're saying it's for this story, it's good. It has to be good because there's barely any plot to it. If they took out the one big reveal, that's like what's left.
That's the climax of the plot,
Yeah.
is that despite all the terrible, shitty things that May did, Mary is not only nice enough, but like so great that she takes May's burden and raises it as her own.
Because yes, it is good for the story because the story would be about literally nothing if it didn't have
Yeah.
that plot.
It really wouldn't be. Okay, well, so anyway, Mary implies it to Richie that the baby was had, and now Mary is keeping the baby.
But Richie seems to be confused and does think it's Mary's baby because he says to Mary, "We never had sex," and he's like, "Oh, well, we did." So
But that's weird to me that he remembered that he had sex with May 47 times. Doesn't remember the one time he had sex with Mary, which is why he broke things off with May. Also, didn't they have sex for hours? How did he forget
Yeah.
that? She tortured him.
Well, that one
it's
time.
repressed memories, Ryan.
I guess.
He's a poor soul.
I thought that line made no sense when he was like, "Oh yeah."
That's the first fault in this book.
First fault in this book. Just like you really want me, you'll do the right thing. There's more dire entries of May getting her life back on track.
And May just saying how she'll never be able to repay Mary for taking the baby.
Taking the baby, setting up with the job. The grouchy like no touching like hotel owners welcome back like May, and they like put her up while like they're going
Yeah.
through all this. Mary apparently she moves up well in the hotel chain.
Well, she's the one that didn't quit after having the big controversy with the pregnancy.
May goes home to her parents, and she seems to think that her parents are just happy to see her because all the rumors of her being pregnant and like running away were untrue, and it was actually Mary.
I don't get how there were like rumors. Like, are her parents like? Do they really have their ear to the ground of all the hip rumors of kids in the Hamptons?
And the book essentially ends with a Mary and Richie getting married. May's there. May is in a. This is the best part. She has the Aunt May earrings. She has like the. She looks like Aunt May. She has the classic Aunt May comics outfit on. Ben is there with his new beau, but he clearly still loves May, and he winds up giving her his number.
Yeah.
At the end of it,
Which is pretty cute, and like
it was a cutesy ending.
his forgiveness is like what kind of brings her full circle.
Yeah.
Which does give me some closure. So I think that should take us to our final judgments on the book. Did it work, Sly?
No, not at all. This is an astounding failure.
Would you recommend it to anybody now that we've talked about it for so long?
Only if you're really interested and you have a high tolerance. Now let me phrase this right. I want to make sure this is perfect.
Do you want to think about it?
I want to think about it.
We'll come back.
Okay. What about you, Joe?
Final thoughts on the book?
Yeah.
Man, it's.
Do you need to think about it?
No, I don't. I almost sneezed. Leave that in.
So this has been Sneezecast. Tune in next week and we'll burp.
You know, I would recommend it. I would recommend it if you have an interest in the medium, just because I think it is different. It is in a lot of ways. It's kind of a revival of the romance comic, and for those who don't understand, in the olden days of comics, the Silver Age, like comics weren't just superheroes.
And when you say Silver Age, that's like the 50s and 60s.
50s, 60s. You had a comic book style like my mom grew up. She grew up reading Millie the Model. Patsy Walker of a Jessica Jones fame grew up or was established as
I
a
always forget that.
romance character. There are also horror books. Like comics had a lot of more genres in them.
And Joe said horror books, not horror books, by the way.
Horror books.
Because you might be confused. We're talking about trouble, so you never know.
Fuck you, Saul. So I found it fascinating as a take on romance comics, because even the setting of the 60s kind of harkens back to that time.
The setting of the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Yeah,
There you go.
that time
Of that
No,
time.
but it does more so than anything else have a 60s feel.
Yeah. And it's just, I like I said, I think this is the bad movie. You can enjoy this in the way you would enjoy a bad movie. You know, like you pick it up as long as you don't take it too seriously. You'll laugh at the ridiculous, over the topness of it.
I'm just gonna copy and paste Joe's remarks.
See, I'm a little more complicated about it because I feel like the first half is very much exactly what you said.
Yeah.
That it's really ridiculous, it's funny,
Yeah.
it's a little more diverse, brings back, because when I first started rereading it, I was really happy. Like, when I was reading it, I was like, this is sex positive, it's not shaming anybody, like, I could dig this. But then I think it shifts tone so much that it gets really mean-spirited in the middle, and then I think it gets too serious without earning it at the end.
But that's why I think it's perfect for bad movie, because if it was perfectly successful at being just an homage to Millie the Model in a modern take,
And we wouldn't be talking
it
about
wouldn't be
it.
talking about it. It would
Yeah.
just be this would just be that. It would just be a Millie
Yeah,
Model in
that's
modern day.
fair. So I think it's borderline between good bad and angry bad.
I mean, I'd agree with you on the last part if I didn't remember the Mary Parker has sex for the first time scene.
Yeah.
That part's classic.
There are I mean, we talked about every issue. I think every issue has pieces that were like, this is a good scene. This is a good scene. It's not.
Or an enjoyable scene.
Yeah.
This is a comedic like.
Yeah, there's something of value in each issue.
Yeah.
That it's not. It's certainly not boring.
Yeah.
And the worst thing a comic could be is boring.
Yeah.
So let's talk about recommendations.
How do you recommend an alternative to Trouble?
So
Or a follow-up to Trouble?
yeah, or if you can't think of anything, just something else you like.
Anything else?
Joe, why don't you go first?
Okay. I'm just gonna do two real quick. Marvel put out a old anthology, not anthology, but it's a collection of Marvel romance stories. I think it's straight up called Marvel Romance, and it's interesting. The stories are mostly the same, but if you want to see the genre they were kind of trying to go for, I'd recommend that. And I'm going to recommend Miss Marvel, the new Kamala Khan Miss Marvel, if you want a young adultish type book that does have some romance to it. It's not just always a straight superhero comic. It's not going to have, obviously Miss Marvel's not going to be like, the laugh out loud, romantic hijinks that, this
It's not,
book has.
nothing's going to
But-
topple.
Nothing will ever topple Trouble in my heart. But it's definitely a solid book, and if you want to see almost that genre done better,
Yeah.
that's where I could maybe point you to.
What about you, Sly?
All right, so my recommendation, I look for something the exact target audience for this book would actually want to read. The very specific weird target audience.
Preacher.
You got it. No. So, theoretically, the person who wants to read this is probably a teen girl who likes Spider-Man. I guess. I'm guessing. I'm trying to.
I don't even think it has to be female. Just someone who, like Joe said, romance comics are kind of a forgotten genre that were really popular. I'm a sucker for
Presumably,
that kind of stuff.
that person will want to read an actually good story called Spider-Man Loves Mary Jane, made under a later attempt at a Marvel imprint called Marvel Age, which was more of an all-ages imprint. Spider-Man Loves Mary Jane is an all-ages book. It's drawn in the manga style, which is very hip of the kids these days. People love their manga.
People
But
love their Japan.
yeah, I like Wolverine, all the weeaboos out there. But
Joe just looks so disappointingly in Sly.
I know I offended Joe. I'm sorry.
Never Sly.
But Spider-Man Loves Mary Jane. We talked about having like cattiness, love triangles. Spider-Man Loves Mary Jane is all about love triangles. The thing I like about it is it starts out with a miniseries called Mary Jane, and Spider-Man has barely any role in it. Peter Parker shows up in maybe one scene, and you see him from the back, and he just says one thing to Harry, and Flash says, "Get the hell out of here, Peter," and Peter leaves.
So it's high school.
Exactly. But basically, it's told from Mary Jane's perspective, and Mary Jane has a crush on Spider-Man, and she doesn't know how to meet him, and she's trying to follow him, and basically you get a few scenes of Spider-Man, and basically he remembers her name, and he rescues her a few times, and she's like, "This can't be a coincidence. He has to know me. He has to be interested in me. I want to date Spider-Man." Basically, the book is everyone wants to date Mary Jane. Harry wants to date Mary Jane. Flash Thompson wants to date Mary Jane. Peter wants to date Mary Jane. And Mary Jane's like, "No, I want Spider-Man." And it's very interesting seeing a book from Mary Jane's perspective. It's a very girl-centric book. Everything's about Mary Jane, her issues, and it has a weird quirk of she wants to date the superhero she thinks is interested in her.
See, I am a huge MJ fan, and I've never read that book.
I recommend
I
it.
should read it.
You should hit the tiger. God,
You should hit the tiger, Jackpot.
you know what? Just for damn recommendation.
You should hit the tiger's face, Jack. I have two recommendations. I'll keep them short. One, if you like the sex book that gets serious at times, but it's still really, really funny, I recommend Image's Sex Criminals. It's one of my favorite Image books. It's a really fun book about people who time freezes for them every time they orgasm. So they do all sorts of fun, wacky things, but there's a lot of like fun sex jokes like in Trouble, and it does get serious at times, but I think they earn it a lot better than these. And the other book I want to recommend is the same creative team, Mark Millar and the Dodsons, did a Spider-Man run, a Marvel Knights Spider-Man run, that is surprisingly fantastic and has really, really great Peter and MJ, and there's really great Venom stuff in it, and the Scorpion's really good.
It's an excellent run.
It's an excellent run. It's just one big trade, and it I think it's a really good run for people who haven't really read a lot of Spider-Man. He kind of runs the gambit of his villains.
You mean
and
Gambit?
Yeah, I mean Gambit.
Too much X-Men on the mind, Ryan.
Yeah, he runs the gamut of all the X-Men villains. What? Let me go back. He runs the gamut of all the Spider-Man villains, and it does a really good job at showcasing what makes Peter and MJ such a great couple, which is surprising given how romance is handled in Trouble. But it's the same creative team. So, if you guys have any recommendations for us, or you have any thoughts on Trouble, you should email us at divisiveissues@gmail.com or hit us up on the Facebook page.
Yeah, do it. Don't be scared. Ryan's not that creepy.
Kind of.
Well, I think that's all we have for this evening. This has been Joe.
This has been Sly.
And this has been Ryan.
Stay in continuity.